If I had to start building wealth from zero in 2026, I would not start by trying to find the perfect stock, and I would not start by asking which coin is about to explode. I would start with a much less exciting question. Where is my money actually going every month? That sounds basic, but this is where a lot of people skip a step. They want to know whether they should use a Roth IRA, buy index funds, open a brokerage account, buy crypto, buy real estate, or build a side hustle. Those are all real conversations, but they do not matter much if the paycheck is already gone before it lands. So, the first part of the plan is getting your expenses under control. The second part is giving every extra dollar a job, in the right order. And just to be clear, this is not personal financial advice. Everyone's taxes, debt, income, and family situation are different. But if we are talking about a typical person with a normal paycheck who wants a clean starting point, this is the order I would use. First, I would find the big leaks. I would not obsess over every $4 coffee just because that gets clicks online. If coffee is genuinely the thing wrecking your budget, fine, fix it. But for most people, the real damage comes from the bigger categories that quietly became normal. A car payment that is too high for the income, rent that leaves no room for anything else, food delivery that went from occasional treat to default dinner plan, subscriptions you do not even remember signing up for, credit card interest that keeps charging you for decisions you made months ago. That is where I would start. I would pull the last 2 or 3 months of spending and look at the recurring stuff first, not because this is fun, but because recurring expenses are powerful. If you cut one random purchase, you save money once. If you cut or renegotiate a recurring bill, you save money every month without needing new willpower. I would put each expense into one of 3 categories. The first category is keep. These are the things you need or the things that are genuinely worth the money. The second category is cut. These are the things you forgot about, barely use, or only keep because canceling feels annoying. The third category is renegotiate. This is where I would look at insurance, phone plans, internet, rent, transportation, and anything else that is large enough to change the month. The goal is not to make life miserable. The goal is to create margin. Margin just means there is money left after the month does what the month always does. Without margin, every financial plan turns into a motivational speech. With margin, you can actually do something. Once I had even a little breathing room, I would build a small starter emergency fund. I would not try to build the perfect emergency fund right away. If you have zero savings, hearing that you need 6 months of expenses can feel so unrealistic that you do nothing. I would start smaller. For many people, $500 or $1,000 is enough to change the next emergency, from a new credit card balance into an annoying problem you can handle. A flat tire is still frustrating. A vet bill is still frustrating. A broken phone is still frustrating. But if you have some cash set aside, those moments do not automatically become debt. That small buffer is not there to make you rich. It is there to keep the plan from falling apart the first time real life happens. After that, I would deal with high-interest debt. I am mainly talking about credit cards, payday loans, and personal loans with ugly interest rates. If a credit card is charging you 22%, then paying it down is already one of the best returns available to you because you are stopping a guaranteed drain. This is where people get distracted. They see someone online talking about investing, and suddenly paying off debt feels boring. But if your debt is growing faster than a realistic investment return, investing around it is usually not clever. It is just messy. If I had multiple debts, I would choose one payoff method and stick with it. The avalanche method means you pay the highest interest rate first. That usually saves the most money. The snowball method means you pay the smallest balance first. That can work better for some people because the quick wins keep them going. I would not spend 3 months debating which one is perfect. I would automate the minimum payments on everything, pick one target, and put extra money there until it is gone. Once the worst debt is under control, this is where the video changes, because getting expenses in check is only the first half. The real question is, what do you do with the money you free up? Here is the order I would use. Number 1, get the full 401k match if your employer offers one. If your company matches part of your retirement contribution, that is not just an investment feature. That is part of your compensation. If you skip it, you are leaving money on the table. For example, if your employer matches 50% of what you contribute up to a certain percentage of your pay, you do not need to overcomplicate that. Before you worry about a brokerage account or a hot investment idea, I would try to contribute enough to get the full match. The investment itself can be simple. A low-cost target date fund or a broad index fund is usually enough for a beginner. The goal at this stage is not to build the most impressive portfolio. The goal is to stop missing free money and get invested automatically. Number 2, if you are eligible for an HSA, I would seriously consider it. This only applies if you have a high deductible health plan and qualify for a health savings account. But if you do, an HSA can be one of the most useful accounts available because it has a rare tax setup. The money can go in with a tax advantage. It can grow tax advantaged. And if you use it for qualified medical expenses, it can come out tax-free. That does not mean everyone should max an HSA before everything else. If your medical situation makes a high deductible plan risky or you need the cash for current expenses, you have to be practical. But for someone who is eligible and can afford to contribute, I would put the HSA very high on the list. Number 3, I would use a Roth IRA if I qualify. A Roth IRA is useful because you contribute money after tax, and qualified withdrawals in retirement can be tax-free. It also gives you more control than a workplace plan because you can choose the brokerage and usually have a wider investment menu. This is especially attractive for someone earlier in their career or someone who expects their tax rate could be higher later. Again, there are income limits, so not everyone can contribute directly. But for a typical beginner who qualifies, I like the Roth IRA before a regular taxable brokerage account, and I would keep the investments boring here too. A broad US stock market index fund, a total world stock fund, or a simple target date fund can be completely fine. You do not need 20 positions to be a real investor. Number 4, after the match, HSA if eligible, and Roth IRA, I would go back to the 401k. This is the part people sometimes miss. They get the match, open a Roth IRA, and then immediately jump to a taxable brokerage account because it feels more flexible. Flexibility is nice, but tax advantage space is valuable. If I still had money to invest for retirement, I would increase the 401k contribution beyond the match. Fidelity's general guideline is to aim towards saving around 15% of income for retirement, including any employer match. That does not mean everyone can hit 15% immediately, but it is a useful target to build toward. If you are at 3%, try 4%. If you are at 6%, try 7%. A 1% increase does not feel dramatic in one paycheck, but over years, it can matter a lot. Number 5. Once the tax advantage accounts are being used well, then I would use a taxable brokerage account. This is where I would invest money that is not locked specifically for retirement, but is still meant for long-term goals. Maybe future financial independence, maybe a house in more than 5 years, maybe just building wealth outside retirement accounts. The key is that a brokerage account is not where I would keep next month's rent, and it is not where I would keep money I need for an emergency. Markets go down. If the money has to be there at a specific time soon, it probably should not be invested aggressively. But for long-term money, a taxable brokerage account can be a great tool. I would still keep it simple, broad, low-cost, diversified funds. The SEC's investor education materials define diversification as not putting all your eggs in one basket, and that is the point. You do not need to guess which company wins the next decade if you own a broad slice of the market. Number 6, only after the core plan is working would I think about alternative assets. This could mean real estate, private investments, collectibles, or other things outside basic stocks and bonds. Some of these can make sense, but they usually come with extra complexity. They can be less liquid, harder to value, more expensive to maintain, or easier to misunderstand. Real estate is a good example. It can build wealth, but it is not passive just because someone on TikTok says it is. There are repairs, tenants, financing, vacancies, insurance, taxes, and concentration risk. If one rental property is most of your net worth, that is very different from owning a diversified fund. So I would not make alternatives the foundation. I would treat them as an extra layer after the basics are already strong. Number 7, crypto would be last, and it would stay small. I know that is not the most exciting answer, but for a typical person starting from zero, I would not put crypto ahead of an emergency fund, high interest debt payoff, a 401k match, a Roth IRA, or a basic diversified portfolio. Crypto can move a lot in both directions. Some people have made money with it, and some people have lost money fast. So, if I used it at all, I would treat it like a speculative slice, not the engine of the plan. For me, that means only money I can afford to see drop sharply, and only after the boring foundation is already handled. If your entire financial future depends on one risky asset going up, that is not a plan. That is pressure. So the full order looks like this. First, get your expenses under control so you have money left each month. Second, build a small starter emergency fund. Third, attack high interest debt. Fourth, get the full 401k match. Fifth, consider an HSA if you are eligible. Sixth, fund a Roth IRA if you qualify. Seventh, increase your 401k toward a real retirement savings rate. Eighth, use a taxable brokerage account for long-term money outside retirement. Ninth, only then consider alternatives or crypto and keep the risky stuff small. That order is not flashy, but that is exactly why I like it. It protects you before it tries to impress anyone. It gives your dollars a sequence, and it keeps you from doing the thing a lot of people do, which is buying complicated investments while their basic financial life is still unstable. If I were starting from zero, I would not try to look advanced. I would try to become consistent. Because for most people, wealth is not built by finding one perfect move. It is built by getting the order right, repeating it, and giving it enough time to work.